Lions, Bears. Going through what y'all need to know to make some money on this bitch. So we got the picks real quick. First thing, line set at 3. Bears favorite at home. And over-under is at 44.5. I'm going to be pretty strong on the under 44.5 here. Not a lot, but I would definitely be on that side. And as well as the Bears money line, I feel pretty comfortable they're going to win this game. Not going to guarantee it, but then the Bears -3. I actually don't think that is bettable. To be honest with you, I mean, you are still talking about Trubisky. I'm going to get into why, but that is still very likely the side I would be on is Bears -3. But I think, yeah, under 44.5 is where the money is in this game. So yeah, stick around and I'll explain why that's how it go now. So first thing, we got weather. It's going to be cold in this game, but that's it. Nothing really affecting anything. So the Lions offense versus the Bears defense. In terms of injuries, Kenny Galladay is still out on the Lions, which is a fucking big deal. I mean, that's probably a given, obviously. And we'll get into how that kind of works out in this specific situation. Matt Stafford, list is questionable. I'm just going to go ahead and assume he plays. If he doesn't, then you can throw kind of what I'm talking about out the window. Obviously, the backup quarterback is going to change everything. That's something else I care about. DeAndre Swift list is questionable. I don't care. On the Bears, Akeem Hicks still listed as questionable. That is a big deal, too. I think he's going to play from everything I've seen. Kind of point sources going to end up playing, but if he doesn't, I feel even less comfortable with the Bears -3. And Khalil Mack also questionable, but again, I'm pretty sure he's going to play. If both of them don't play, then that's going to change the math a little bit. But actually, I would still be on the under in the end anyway, so it's not necessarily a huge deal. So yeah, offense versus defense. We talk about the offensive line. So first thing, we do the run game. We talk about the offensive line versus defensive line. I mean, there ain't gonna be no push in this game from the Lions, really. Frank Ragnow is a good center, but he's still just one player, and he's not some gigantic monster who moves into when he touches. And their guards. I mean, Jonah Jackson's been decent, especially for a rookie guard, but he's not a super people mover. And Ode Ibushi is likely going to get the start of right guard after coming off of IR last week. He started all last week, so I'm sure he's going to start again this week. And he is just not a good player, really. He does some okay things, actually, in terms of the run game especially. But in this matchup, with the Bears D-line of Brent Urban, Wall Nichols, Jordan Jenkins, Akeem Hicks, who's out there, all those guys they're big, they're good at the line of scrimmage, and he ain't going to be getting a lot of work done. You talk about the tackles, I mean, Taylor Decker is a real run blocker for sure. Tyrell Crosby, not so much, more of a finesse pass blocker. But either way, neither of them are really going to be pushing or getting any traction versus Khalil Mack. And on the other side, Robert Quinn's been disappointed, of course, he's a pass rusher. But A, he doesn't play every down, and B, I don't think he's quite as bad as maybe he's looked at sometimes. And whether it's him or Barkevius Mingo or James Waters, all three of them are going to be stout enough to prevent the Lions really moving too much of the line of scrimmage. They're moving a little bit. On the second level, the Bears have decent linebackers. They're not crazy good, but they do clean up simple run games very well, which is what the situation is here. So I actually think this game they're going to look really good. And the Lions, Frank Ragnow is a tremendous center, even at the second level, one of the best in the NFL for sure. But he's going to have trouble moving off the line of scrimmage, just having fat-ass Wall Nichols right in front of him the whole game. It's tough, and he'll get there sometimes, but it's nothing that I really want to bank on in any given frequency. So then you talk about, the overall run game is just going to be bad again. The Lions, they can only run the ball against actively bad run defense. The Bears is the complete opposite of that. And so it's going to be real tough for them. So you talk about pass rush. Khalil Mack is way better than both the tackles here. He's been a little bit disappointing, and I don't necessarily think he's going to get right. He's not a dominant pass rusher most of the time anyway. He'll rack up pressures versus real bad tackles, but he's not the dominant force that people make him out to be. In terms of one-on-one off the line of scrimmage, constantly winning the pass rushing. So you're going to see that he is better than Taylor Decker, and especially his type of rush gets Tyrell Crosby on the other side. Like I said, more of a finesse guy who's Khalil Mack's a big, strong power rusher, but he's not going to go crazy, although I think it'll be pretty good. And I'll just mention, Robert Quinn, like I said, has been really disappointing, but he is the exact type of player that gives Taylor Decker problems. Taylor Decker, a good tackle, but he is vulnerable a little bit to for real speed rush. And Robert Quinn is that type of player. Again, we'll see if that actually happens, but I wouldn't be surprised if Robert Quinn looks better in this game, at least for a couple snaps. So then you talk about the receivers versus the defense. With no Kenny Galladay, the Lions' offense is trash. They really rely on being able to consistently take deep shots down the field. So the two between him and Marvin Jones, he's like two good tracking receivers down the field. Without Kenny Galladay, though, when you have the thing they rely on for offensive output, they just get real bad really quick. Marvin Hall is fast and he can do some of the same things, but he's nowhere near Kenny Galladay in regards to that. And Marvin Jones is not a separator; he can't drive offense by himself very well. And you're going to see that in this game. The Bears secondary very good, and Kyle Fuller will shut down. He will dominate Marvin Jones. Now, will there be a contested catch or two? No, sure, whatever. But it's nothing that's going to drive the Lions' offense. And past that, I mean, you're talking about Danny Amendola, rookie Quintez Cephas, Jamal Agnew, Mohamed Sanu, all none of whom are consistently helpful receivers. And Danny Amendola is the best of them. But even he, at this age, is not a frequent target the way that maybe he used to be. He used to be, like Adam Humphries, that type of thing. But now he's not. He's a little bit different than Adam Humphries, actually. But the point is that now he's not like a 12 reception guy that's going to move the chains a bunch, and now the other guys are good enough. Mohamed Sanu, but this is similar, just slow, bigger guys who don't create separation. So you're talking about a bunch of problems with consistent separation. So the overall pass game is it's going to be mediocre to bad. I mean, Matthew Stafford, without the two receivers to consistently target downfield, isn't enough to drive offense by himself, and he doesn't have help here. Those receivers aren't going to be consistently good or open, and the pass rush, while not dominant, is there enough to bother him significantly. So, and even if they get in the red zone, Stafford is notoriously awful in the red zone. Him and Matt Ryan are really similar in that regard. They just don't make good decisions. They don't make quick enough decisions in that part of the field for whatever reason. And here, I mean, why would they score touchdowns, right? Like, their scheme isn't good, their offensive play calling isn't good, Stafford's not good in the red zone, and the receiver, except for Marvin Jones jump balls. If you want to rely on that, sure. But I'm going to have them in a point spread of like 7-14. There's a legitimate chance that they're in the single digits in this game. I mean, it just happened against the Falcons a couple weeks ago. Listen, they're without their, like I said, without the shots down the field working, they're just really bad, and you're going to see that in this game. As far as the Bears' offense goes, now, and I will throw a little amendment on the Lions' point spread there. They are playing against Mitch Trubisky, so if they get 2 pick sixes, obviously that's out the window, and that's possible. I don't think that's going to happen necessarily in this game, but I wouldn't rule it out. Hence why I don't think the Bears -3 is a huge value. So then you talk about the Bears' offense versus the Lions' defense. Injuries. Trubisky starting to place Nick Foles again. Nick Foles probably going to play as the backup. Charles Leno, starting left tackle, is questionable, and Jermaine Ifedi, right tackle, is questionable. I think they're both going to play. If either of them do, that's going to get worse for the Bears, but again, that just favors the under even more. And on the Lions, no Jeff Okudah, no Deshaun Hand, and Tracy Walker and Austin Bryant are both questionable. Both players actually kind of like as like backups for rotation guys, but when we talk about the run game, so offensive line versus defensive line, again, I mean, the Bears at this point with the injuries they've gone through, their interior offensive line is so weak. Same moves for Alex Bars, their center and right guard, are just a little. they can't move forward with people. And the Lions' defensive line, I mean, what they can be bad in some, like really bad in some matchups, but if you give them anything, it's that they're fucking big, strong dudes. I mean, John Pincini, their rookie, I think he's a 5th rounder. He's a 5th rounder. That guy's actually pretty good. So Danny Shelton got put on IR, but honestly, if anything, that just gets better, more diverse players in the field for the Lions. Given like they'll probably get more time like Romeo Okwara or Austin Bryant. Like I said, I think that's pretty good. Everson Griffin too. So they're not going to be able to push dudes. Even Cody White here, the one of decent Bears interior offensive lineman, isn't too special. And on the edges, the Bears tackles are just bad run blockers. Jermaine Ifedi is not good, especially at tackle as a run blocker. And Charles Leno he actually can flash some nice things, but he's nothing that is really going to cause any impact. So you're just not talking across the line of scrimmage very much push. On the second level, I mean, Reggie Ragland, it can be exploited sideline to sideline. He's just a big, slow player. But here, the Bears' running scheme is awful, and David Montgomery is slow. I like David Montgomery a lot. He causes he is really one of the best running backs in terms of creating a 3-yard gain out of a negative 2-yard loss. but that's like all he can do. He's not going to create like a 25-yard gain out of something. He did in the Packers game, but that was because the Packers are terrible run defenders, and they just gave that up. I mean, any running back would have done that. So Reggie Ragland is actually goes the other way in this game, where normally he's kind of a liability. He's going to be pretty good here. And Jamie Collins is legitimately good, and he's going to be really good here. So the overall run game for the Bears is just going to be it's going to be awful. I mean, they just don't have a path to succeed, like I said, outside of David Montgomery causing missed tackles for a 5-yard gain, which, sure, but that's only gets you 5 yards. And past that, it's just bad. And then you get to the pass game. So pass rush first. Lions are awful pass rush, awful. But I will say that here there's actually a chance that they're not so bad, because Romeo Okwara and Everson Griffin are marginally reasonable, like stronger hands placement rushers on the edge. Everson Griffin's been a lot better than that in his past, but this year he's pretty clearly slowed down. And that's actually probably enough. I mean, Germain Ifedi, again, there's a reason he's been playing guard up until recently for the Bears, because he can't really handle pass protection at tackle. And you're probably going to see that some. And even Charles Leno, I mean, he's injured. If he doesn't play, then it's a big deal. And even if he does, he's not perfect. I think he's better than them in pass pro, but he's not perfect. And on the interior, again, the Lions' interior rush is literally zero. But if they move Romeo Okwara in there or something like that, the Bears' interior offensive line, really, all of them, including Whitehair, are all really vulnerable in pass protection. Now, Whitehair is better than the other two, but I'm not going to say he's great just because he's playing next to two awful players. So then you get to the receivers, and here, okay, there's some hope for the Bears, and this is why I end up having them winning this game. Is because Allen Robinson is really, really good, and he can legitimately have games where he like drives the offense up and down the field, and I think that's going to be the case here. Remember, no Jeff Okudah for the Lions, so you're talking about Amani Oruwariye probably shadowing him, which is not going to go well. Oruwariye can actually do okay versus some like bigger, slower receivers, maybe more like Alshon Jeffrey or something like that. But he's not. He's two things. One, he's not good enough for Allen Robinson, not even close. And B, he's pretty bad at the catch point for a big corner. Like, he loses the ball all the time, and Allen Robinson's very good at the catch point. So you're gonna see that come up, I'm sure. So he's gonna be really good. And even Darnell Mooney and Anthony Miller, pretty similar players, are both good in terms of like being quick guys that get open, and they're going to be okay here. Now, Justin Coleman, whoever he's covering in the slot, actually is reasonable enough to maybe limit them a little bit, but not completely. And then Mike Ford, probably who's going to fill in at the other corner spot. I'm not super impressed by him. I don't think he's like completely awful, but he's nothing that I'm worried about. So then you talk about the quarterback. So Mitch Trubisky, awful, and he's going to this offense, given a better quarterback, could score a whole lot of points in this game. They won't because of Trubisky. But he does some things. When you saw against the Packers, he's at least willing to take risks, even if they're really dumb risks. But that can lead to points, especially when he has the matchups outside, like Allen Robinson, that help with that. So while Mitch Trubisky, again, he's going to be the cause of the Bears not scoring very many points in this game, he also is good enough. Good is not the right word. He does things that are going to cause them to at least score some points. He might cause the Lions to score points too, for sure. But I'm not as worried about that as I am in other games. And here I actually think he's going to be at least a little bit reasonable. But once they get in the red zone, though, again, they don't really have a lot of paths to succeed. I mean, Allen Robinson jump balls, but anytime you're the first thing you mention in the red zone is a team throwing jump balls, it's going to be not consistently good. And the Bears can't really run the ball at that point, and Darnell Mooney, Anthony Miller lose a lot of effectiveness. So, and also the tight ends in this game are going to be really limited. The Lions, probably the best strength of their defense is the way they cover tight ends between Jaron Kearse and Tracy Walker, two safeties. They play a lot in the box. And Jimmy Graham and Cole Kmet are both incapable of separating. So I'm going to have them at a point spread of 13 to 20. And I think that's probably the ceiling. Maybe again with defensive scores. I think the only way this game goes over, this even gets close, is with defensive scores, which is possible. I mean, we're talking about Mr. Trubisky, but that's not something you ever want to bet on. Even if there is one or maybe two, I think you're probably still safe. And I just want to mention too, because I know maybe people think about when the Trubisky came in against the Lions earlier. in the season. It came back and went crazy for 21 points in the fourth quarter. That was because of Tony McRae, Tony McRae is the line. I think he's on IR now. He was their backup slot corner earlier in the year. They went through a bunch of injuries. He came on the field, and he probably is the single worst coverage player in the NFL. I mean, he's worse than like Vernon Hargraves or the Byron Murphy, the Cardinal. I mean, he is unbearably awful, and he was literally the cause of them scoring all those touchdowns. You can see it. And he's not playing this game, so there's not that weak spot to attack. So yeah, Lions 7-14, Bears 13-20. The only way I think it goes higher than that is with defensive scores, which is possible. So yeah, I think strongly take the under here.